Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa. Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa, Internet World, West Alabama, right here downtown Northport, 2 miles away from Bryant-Denny Stadium. This is the Joe Gaither Show right here on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com. Having a great week so far. We are in week number 6. Alabama Crimson Tide football right here, a couple days away from Alabama, heading out to College Station, Texas. And we're going to have a lot of fun today. We're going to have a fun show. We've had a fun week so far. We've talked to a couple of people already about the game. We talked about the Mississippi State win on Monday. We talked to Ryan Fowler on Tuesday. We basically had a fun show yesterday talking about really the injury updates from Alabama's perspective and playing SEC Silly Sound of the Week. Jimbo Fisher did not make our Silly Sound this past week, but I promise you he will make our Silly Sound for this coming up week. Always got to throw in the opposing coaches for from the Alabama game. Zach Arnett, last week's game, had a couple of funny comments. We play the players we have available. We play the players we have available over and over and over again. But we're going to have a lot of fun today. We're going to talk to Olin Buchanan from TexAgs.com. He's going to give us all his expertise about College Station, about Jimbo Fisher, about Max Johnson, about Walter Nolan, big old Walter Nolan, and them boys. We're going to see if Alabama can win or lose. Last time, Alabama going out to College Station, losing 41-38 with a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback. It's going to be a big old challenge, and we are excited to talk about the matchup this weekend. Want to encourage you to follow our other Bama Central Broadcasting Network podcast, Blue Collar Unplugged, and follow our friends Katie Wyndham, Austin Hannon, and Blake Byler. They're going to be driving out to College Station. Katie already working her way out there, and Austin and Blake are going to be working their way out there tomorrow. So make sure you follow us at Bama Central for all the coverage of Alabama, Jimbo Fisher, and the big old weekend. Without further ado, let's welcome in our guest today. Olin Buchanan is here from TexAgs.com. You can follow him at Olin Buchanan on the Twitter/X machine, and we really appreciate his time and his attention and expertise. Olin, actually, I heard you just a little bit on my friend Stingray's show last night. I was driving home from Nick Saban's press conference, and I said, "Oh, Stingray, same guy, Olin Buchanan." Oh, so I appreciate your time, and I appreciate Stingray said to say hello. So, how are you doing? And thank you for your time joining us today.
Well, you're welcome. Obviously, it's been pretty busy this week. You'd think there's a big football game or something going on. So I've done a few of these, and that's fine. Any day is a good day to talk about college football.
Absolutely, and it's going to be a huge weekend this weekend. Obviously, Texas A&M is unranked at the moment, but that might be a product of voter ignorance. A&M 4-1, Alabama 4-1, both undefeated in the league, both played okay through the first couple of weeks in SEC play, but the winner will take sole possession of SEC West first place. And so, really, what are we supposed to expect? Alabama, a 2-point favorite going out to College Station. I mean, you never can really take what the Vegas line says as gospel because they're really just playing the money. But Alabama, opened at 7.5 points, and is now down to 2.5, 1.5, wherever you're betting, wherever you're placing your wager. Max Johnson gets his second start out for Texas A&M. He played pretty well against Arkansas. Obviously, Bobby Petrino and Jimbo Fisher are doing their thing, and that's seemingly working out pretty well. But Texas A&M has a nasty, nasty defense, and that's got a lot of Alabama fans really worried about Jalen Milroe's future. So we'll just start a big old general question. How has your thought process worked throughout the week, going into the week? Because every week, Sunday you think one thing, and by the time you're at Friday, you kind of land on something else, or at least I usually do. So what has your thought process been for this week's game, and how has it developed through the week?
Well, I don't know how much it developed as much as I just think that, from the beginning of the week, that these two teams are probably very evenly matched. I think A&M probably is more on equal footing talent-wise with Alabama than it ever has in the since A&M entered the SEC in 2012. I think that's partly because the recruiting efforts by A&M over the last few years, and partly because Alabama's had some issues in certain positions where they're not as good as they typically been. And I think, you start that at quarterback. That's not a shot at Jalen Milroe. I mean, heck, he's from an hour from College Station. So we know we're very well aware of what he can do, but I don't see him as a Heisman Trophy contender the way Alabama typically has a quarterback that's one of the best in the country. So so along those lines. So I expect that it's going to be another great game down, decided late in the fourth quarter, just like the last two games. I know you know this. Were decided on the last play of the game. I don't know if it's going to be down to the final play, but I do think it's going to be a game that's probably going to be in doubt going into the final quarter and maybe even the final minutes.
Well, Jimbo Fisher got the huge contract going out to Texas A&M, and the first couple of years it was kind of, I guess the jury was out, but the last 2 years, Jimbo, I feel like, has really started to find his footing, at least with the Alabama game, as a big perspective. Really, with Alabama, look, 2 years ago he says, "Oh well, Nick Saban started it." We'll be honest. Nick Saban starts it with Texas A&M. They bought their whole roster. And I talked to you on my previous employer a day or two after that on Todd 100.9. You were in the press room where Jimbo Fisher was, he wants to be God. He wants to be, bow down to him, this, that, and the other. And like that obviously sparked a huge drama. And then obviously A&M wins the game 41-38, and everything that you referenced. Again, you come into Tuscaloosa, Jalen Milroe gets thrown in as the starter, Bryce Young is hurt. Throwing into the end zone, Connor Wigman at the end, Evan Stewart and Terry Arnold. It's been kind of a spicy contest over the last couple of years, and it continued this year. Anaya Smith basically saying, this year's personal for us, or personal for me, because of how Coach Saban treated my brother. And my man Terry Arnold in the press room said, okay, you know what Nick Saban wants. Just talk about where this rivalry or where this contest has kind of stacked up in the SEC West. Obviously, we're playing for first place for now. You're gonna have Alabama Auburn. That's a pretty big rivalry. Y'all Texas A&M played Arkansas, and A&M is going to play LSU. That's a pretty big deal as well. But from the A&M, from the College Station perspective, what does this game mean as it's lining up in 2 days?
Well, it means everything. This is the game that I think that you were thinking about, you were aiming for, you were trying to build to ever since Jimbo Fisher was hired. Look, yeah, they beat Alabama, but when they beat Alabama 2 years ago, they already had 2 SEC losses. They'd already lost to Mississippi State and Arkansas, so it was a huge upset, and it gave you an opportunity to have a good year. And they went on a winning streak until lost the last 2 games. But this time, you're 2-0. Both teams are 2-0. If you win, you get the inside track at going to Atlanta. Still a lot of work to do for A&M. That means winning on the road, which they haven't done since 2021 in a true road game. So nothing's for sure, but you get the pole position if you win. And basically, you have essentially a 2-game lead over Alabama in the West if you're able to win it. And then you become big Alabama fans, because then you want them to win and keep other teams behind you. That said, that may be the only time there's probably 2 times you'd ever see the Aggies now root for Alabama. They've already done it once this year in the second game. You know how that works. And then if it would help you, but there's no way Alabama can ever help you unless you beat them. And look, we understand for Alabama, usually the path to Atlanta to the championship game means beating LSU. Sometimes Auburn, but usually it's LSU. A&M would like to take over LSU's spot in that pecking order.
Well, it's going to be a lot of fun this weekend. It's the last year of division, so that's kind of makes it a little bit more special of a matchup. But Texas A&M, for the second time in 3 years, is playing a backup quarterback in the ballgame. Now, Max Johnson, a little bit different backup quarterback than Zach Calzada. What's been your impression? Max Johnson gets thrown in the game against Auburn after Wegman breaks his foot. terrible. Don't want anybody to be injured, but that's just what happens in football. And plays pretty well. Throws a touchdown pass to his brother. And I thought, I put on the Arkansas tape this morning, I thought he played pretty well against Arkansas. What is your perspective of Max Johnson and really his outlook in this game and beyond the rest of the year? Because he's the guy now.
Max Johnson's a good quarterback. He played for LSU, started the season, beat A&M with a last-second touchdown pass. He's good. Now, just my own personal opinion, Jimbo Fisher may or may not agree, and if he did, he wouldn't say it. But I thought the biggest difference between the two is I look at it as that you can win with Max Johnson. You can win because of Connor Wigman. But that's not meant to be a shot at Max. It's just how good I think Connor is. But you don't have Connor. Max is still a good football player. He took over last year after Haynes King struggled, and then he started a couple of wins, and then he got hurt against Mississippi State and was out for the year. So he's played well for A&M even before this year. And I think that he's played extremely well since he's come in for Connor. He threw a couple touchdown passes against Auburn after coming in the second half. And last week he threw a couple of touchdown passes. And then he had an interception. I don't put that one on him. I think it was a play that there was a lot of confusion on. Guys didn't know who they were supposed to block, and they just gave Arkansas a gift. But for the most part, Max has been pretty solid. I'll put it this way. He plays well enough to where if Alabama wins, I doubt that A&M is going to be able to use Max Johnson as the excuse.
Well, A&M made a big change over the offseason, bringing in Bobby Petrino, and many outsiders were like, oh, that's not going to work. Two big old egos in the same offensive room, Jimbo Fisher and Bobby Petrino. It seems like it's going well from the outside perspective. What has been your take on the dynamic between the two, and really the biggest difference that you have noticed on the field offensively for Texas A&M?
Well, I think it is working. I think all those that were just saying, oh, this is never going to work, they at least so far, they're being proved wrong. The A&M offense was atrocious last year. You could blame some of it on injuries, but you couldn't blame it all on injuries. There was very little pre-snap motion, very little even trying to deceive somebody. So if you couldn't just line up and beat them head up, you probably wasn't going to win the play. This year, you're seeing more of that, more pre-snap motion, but more than anything, they're getting plays in quicker, which sounds like something kind of silly, but believe me, at A&M, that's been an issue. I don't know how many delay of game and using your timeouts, all three timeouts before the half, because they couldn't get a play in time. Just so they've become more efficient, more fluid, and it's showing. Bobby's philosophy is simply feed the studs, get your best players the ball in the best opportunity you can. And they've done a pretty good job with that. Last year, I thought it was not unusual to see A&M score 20 points or less. Now, if they could get out of their own way with pre-snap penalties and some unforced turnovers, so that's something they got to iron out. They could be averaging over 30 points easily. They're moving the football now.
Yeah, I think in my week one SEC Silly Sound, I clipped it one from Jimbo Fisher. We had 5 drives, we got 5 touchdowns, and so that's what you want to do. That's what you want to do.
Yeah, it gets harder than when you're playing New Mexico. But
sure, certainly.
Even in their loss to Miami, they ran up 450 yards of offense. They moved the ball up and down the field. It was some of those what I'm talking about, pre-snap penalties and unforced errors that I referenced that was their problem, and it continues to be a problem. I'm always think that they're a pretty good team right now if they could ever iron out those issues and stop helping their opponent. And I'm not talking about, look, if Dallas Turner comes in and gets a big nasty sack and forces a fumble, that's one thing. If McKinstry, jumps a route and makes a great play for an interception, that's one thing. That you give your opponent credit and understand they're good too. Yes. But when you're looking at 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1 at the goal line, and a guy can't hold his water and jumps offside, so now you got to kick a field goal, or like I referenced the interception last week against Arkansas, which was a gift, or against Auburn, you're got a first down at the Auburn 33, and you look like you're going to run in and put that game on ice, and your freshman loses a fumble and it goes the other way for a touchdown. If you can ever get to the point where you can iron out those issues, you can be a championship contender.
Well, you talked about Bobby Petrino getting the ball to his studs, and you just mentioned two studs on the Alabama defensive side of the ball. But Texas A&M's receivers are that trio of Anaya Smith, Evan Stewart, and Noah Thomas. They're pretty studly themselves. What do you think the matchup between the back end of Alabama's defense, Terry and Arnold and Kool-Aid McKinstry, you got Malachi Moore versus Evan Stewart, Anaya Smith, and no, excuse me, I keep having to forget Noah Thomas. Yes, Anais didn't play last year. Obviously, he's got the little comments this year, but he has been a very good weapon. He's been a very good weapon when he's been available. How do you think that matchup's going to shake out on Saturday?
Well, I think it's a good matchup. A&M's going to win their share. Alabama's going to win their share. Anaya Smith has been exceptional against Alabama. He's one of those guys that seems to play best in the biggest games. He's had 4 touchdown passes or 4 touchdown catches in 2 games against Alabama in his
Alabama. Fortunate he wasn't available last year.
He had a season-ending injury against Arkansas. And as a matter of fact, that's why he's playing this year, because if that had not been for the injury, I'm sure he would have went in the draft and be playing on Sundays now. He's a heck of a player. You guys know that. Y'all seen it. Evan Stewart had a huge game against Alabama last year. So, you start with those 2 guys. Guy you didn't mention, and quite frankly, I don't understand why A&M's not using more, is Moose Muhammad, who had an excellent game against Alabama last year. So I think A&M's receivers are as a group are as good as anybody Alabama's going to face, and that includes Texas.
Yeah.
So I think A&M is going to look at that as their receivers as the strength of their offense, and they're going to say, hey, let's go strength on strength. If that secondary is the strength of Alabama, and I don't know if it is. I know the defense is good all over, but they're not going to be afraid to challenge them. And they've had success before, and they're going to see if they can't have success again.
Well, really what's got Alabama fans and the Alabama faithful pretty nervous for this coming up weekend is the defensive line of Texas A&M against the Alabama offensive line. Now, Alabama obviously played better against Mississippi State, but I've been saying on the show this week, State is not good. Their talent is just not nowhere near what Alabama's going to see this weekend against A&M. You got tons and tons of talent. You referenced the recruiting efforts earlier in the conversation. What's been different, or have you noticed anything different from the DJ Durkin staff, from the DJ Durkin defense that he's been able to free up the front? They're 10th in sacks in the nation, I believe is what I saw. And then they're very high in tackles for loss as well. So they've been getting after people. Arkansas rushed 42 times, 39 yards. I think is what it saw. 39 rushes,
42 yards.
Yeah, I was backwards. Yeah. So basically nothing. Every time you're handing the ball off, they're getting nothing. What's been the difference, or how has the emphasis on the defensive front really impacted the team?
Well, just from my observations, and they may say this is wrong. In fact, Jimbo says just a bunch of guys are starting to figure it out, and there's probably some credence to that, because midway through your second season, guys like Walter Nolan are probably figuring it out. That said, I personally, just from my point of view, they played. I thought they had a passive approach to the defense against Miami, and they kind of set back. They didn't bring much pressure from linebackers and blitz much. Sometimes rush 3, which never makes sense to me. If you got an advantage in the defensive line, if you rush 3, all of a sudden you're giving away your advantage. And Tyler Van Dyke stood back there all day with plenty of time and found open receivers because he wasn't rushed. And I think after that, either DJ Durkin, the defensive coordinator, either saw the light, or Jimbo Fisher went to him and helped him see it. And they decided, hey, we need to start doing more twists and stunts up front with our guys, and we need to bring more pressure Edger and Cooper linebackers had 4 sacks in the last 2 games. They've had 14 sacks in the last 2 games. You can say, well, that's just Arkansas and that's just Auburn. But I saw Auburn damn near beat Georgia, and I saw Arkansas dang near beat LSU. So, so that pass rush and that play at the defensive line has made a big difference. I think it's because they've just decided to be more aggressive instead of passive.
We're talking to Olin Buchanan of TexAgs.com. You can follow him at Olin Buchanan on the Twitter machine. I really appreciate his time, and follow all his work at TexAgs.com. He's going to be covering, obviously, all things Aggies, but you want to follow him this weekend for the Alabama perspective and A&M perspective. Just since Texas A&M has come into the SEC, it's been, obviously it wasn't the same success as Missouri getting to the SEC title game twice, but has been Yeah, exactly. A much different path, but has had fairly Heisman Trophy winning Johnny Manziel. You come into Alabama, you beat them, you win. Jimbo Fisher becomes the first assistant coach to beat Nick Saban. What do you think? What is the Texas A&M feel for bringing in Texas and Oklahoma into the league next year?
Well, originally, A&M was against it. A&M likes the idea of being the only SEC team in the state of Texas, and would have liked for it to stay that way. But they're going to be team players. I'll put it this way, though: if let's say Louisville or Florida State or Clemson wanted membership, I think A&M would say, "Heck yeah, that sounds like a great idea." Florida and South Carolina and Kentucky, since you voted that way. Look, A&M had a gentleman's agreement with Mike Slive that A&M would be the only team in Texas in the SEC. Well, Mike, Commissioner Slive passed away. He was replaced, and quite frankly, Greg Sankey was not obligated to keep that agreement, and he saw a benefit in adding Texas and Oklahoma. And I think financially anybody can see that that's a benefit. So A&M is says, okay, we'll go along with it and bring them on. We'll kick their ass.
I love that. I cannot wait to see A&M and Texas again, hopefully on that Thanksgiving weekend, like I used to see it growing up. Has that been something that Aggies fans have missed, or is that something that they've said, "Oh, good, get them off our schedule. We don't care about y'all little, rivalry sort of aspects"?
Depends on who you're talking about. Some Aggies miss it, especially the older Aggies that grew up with the game and it was part of your heritage. You watch the Lions in the morning, you watch the Cowboys in the afternoon, you watch the Aggies and Longhorns at night. That was that's our heritage. But younger guys, they didn't really care, and quite frankly. Great, they're going to be on the schedule. Super, let's play. But I think A&M moved past Texas. I think A&M, the divorce was fine, and A&M had moved on. And quite frankly, it was more fun playing Alabama and Auburn and LSU and going to those stadiums than it. Texas is just the guy across the street. You're broadening your horizons, and quite frankly, up until this year, Texas hadn't been that good. So you'd rather measure your program against LSU and Alabama and Auburn. And but hey, if Texas is going to come in, if Oklahoma's going to come in, fine. If you've been playing Alabama for 12 years and you've been playing LSU for 12 years, I don't think you're going to be worried about playing Texas again.
Certainly, absolutely. And Texas A&M has elevated its program over the last 12 years. Certainly, I think that's fair to say. Well, as a whole, I feel like they've elevated. Now, maybe that's my ignorance. Please,
no, it's been. They've had good years. They've had bad years. They've had some. Last year was a really bad year. This year looks like it could be a good one. They've certainly invested more into the program than they ever had before, and that comes from being in the SEC, because I don't think they would have put the full investment that they had they remained in the Big 12.
Well, before I get your prediction, let's talk just a couple of things about College Station. We're going to have obviously a lot of Alabama fans heading out there.
Mhm.
They've never, many people haven't gotten out there before. It's only been a couple of, fifth trip out there since they've been into the league. So what's the experience like Midnight Yell? You see it on TV, you see it on Twitter, you see it as a SEC tradition now. Obviously, Aggies tradition forever and ever, but now SEC brings it in and says, oh, it's our tradition too now, kind of thing. What's Midnight Yell like?
I think more than anything, it's an excuse to bring a date to the event, and they're going to turn the lights off for a while.
Okay.
and make of that what you want. It lasts for about a half an hour. You get to Kyle Field, and if you're on the road, they pick a place on the road and do it. And it's just they have a lot of the choreographed cheers or yells as they call them here. And so you go in and the Yale leaders do a speech about the game upcoming and encourage everybody to be crazy the next day and be involved into the game, which they're going to be. And then they practice the yells that are going to be yelled. Everybody knows them. You don't really have to, but it's something that when A&M was an all-male military school back in the day, back in the 1910s and 20s that they did, and tradition's a big thing here at A&M, so they continue it. And so it's just a way to show your enthusiasm and support. And like I said, you can bring your date, and it lasts for until about 12:30, and then who knows what's going to happen after that. You let the night take you where it wants.
There you go. Well, maybe some of the Alabama fans will see that as they get over there. I've heard that. I've heard it's a welcoming crowd. I've heard the Aggie fans are mostly hospitable on the whole. I had one of my old employees go out there 2 years ago, and she said it was the loudest place that she's ever been at the stadium during the game. I think she made it to Midnight Yell and said it was fun, but she said the game, Kyle Field, to the 12th man, was just the loudest place she'd ever been.
Typically, Aggies are they want you to be here. They want you to have a good time. They don't want you to win. But they'll talk football with you and be as hospitable as you could ask. They're the anti-LSU, and I can say that my son actually is an LSU student, and so he didn't have a good experience here last year. But they're welcoming, want you to have a good time, want you to come, want you to spend your money, want you to go home thinking, hey, that was all right. Too bad you lost. That's the perfect weekend. And if you'll just take it for the experience of it, I mean, it is a great game day atmosphere. The cheers and the song of the varsity's horns, which is when you see them swaying back and forth, that's supposed to mimic a saw that's sawing the Longhorns off.
Okay.
So that's what that's about.
I like that.
If you take all that in and just enjoy it as a game day atmosphere, I think it's as good a game day atmosphere as you'll find anywhere in the country. And like I said, the fans are typically going to treat you very well.
Well, if our Alabama faithful gets over there early, as obviously it's a long drive, so it might plan to get in there Friday night. What is something in College Station you've been? What's something in the area? Obviously, Joe, you go through Houston, so a lot of people are going to probably stay in Houston and drive on over there. What is something closer outside of Houston in the College Station area, whether it be a restaurant or a couple of restaurants or a sightseeing or some sort of aspect of College Station that you would say, hey, if you got some time, make a moment and check this out?
Well, you can go to the George Bush Library. President Bush has his presidential library on campus, so you can see that if you're interested in that. If you're more into the party atmosphere, you want to get down to the Northgate area. You might check the Dixie Chicken, which is it's kind of like the SO Club at Clemson, the place that's been there forever.
Sure.
There are other places that may be newer and cleaner, but
history.
But the history is there. They got the rattlesnake that you can see, and that's where you're going to see most of the nightlife and the students. Old guy like me, I'd stay away from there. But if you're visiting, there's a lot of nice places to eat, but you might, if you haven't already made reservations, you might have to find a place in South College Station. Now, South College Station means you're about 5 miles from campus, so south isn't way south, but
Sure.
that's what we call it. But that's where the older people stop and eat. But you can go and see if it's something that might interest you. On campus they have the bonfire monument for the students that lost their life back about 20 years ago. So there's things to take in. I think aside from the party, and I think the thing that would maybe to a lot of conservative people that might have liked George Bush, that might be the thing that they would be most interested in seeing.
Awesome. Well, and I've had a great time. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm done. I'm done.
Okay. I thought you had. I didn't want to cut you off. We had a
Well,
great time.
you can go down to downtown Bryan, by the way, and there's always things. Bryan and College Station are right together. They're Siamese twins, right? So you can go down to the historic downtown Bryan, and there's a lot of restaurants down there too. And you'll see a whole lot of people walking around. There's some people watching and things to do down there too.
Well, people watching is like my number one thing. I might have a beer or two, but I want to see the crowd and just kind of take it all in and maybe have a good conversation or two. That sounds like a blast, really. We're sending 3 of our reporters out there. Hopefully, I'm gonna try to send them your way and to say hello and to say thank you on my behalf. Katie Wyndham, Austin Hannon, and Blake Byler will be over there. So now we've talked pretty much all aspects of the game. As Alabama 2.5 point favorite according to the Vegas line. How do you see the game playing out on the field?
Well, like I said earlier, I think it's going to be a fourth quarter game.
Yeah.
It may not be decided until the last minute or two. And if it comes down to a final kick, obviously Alabama has the edge there because I don't think Will Rockert ever misses. Has he ever missed the field goal? If he has, I've never seen it.
Not this year.
So it's up to A&M to make sure that doesn't come to that. And quite frankly, I've been trying to break this down, and a lot of respect, a lot of admiration for Alabama. I don't care if they're not as good as maybe as they've been in the last couple of years. It's still Alabama. Still scares the bejesus out of you because that's the gold standard. I'm taking A&M. I think that A&M defense is going to make it very difficult for Alabama to score, and I think it's going to come out to be something around 23-20, maybe last year's score, but reversed. But I do think that A&M has as much talent as Alabama does, and being the home team, I think that's going to give them an edge.
Well, it's going to be a lot of fun. I cannot wait for this weekend. 2:30 on CBS. Alabama and Texas A&M square off for first place in the SEC West. Our guest today has been Olin Buchanan from TexAgs.com. I want to encourage you to follow him at Olin Buchanan and read all his work at TexAgs.com.
All your Alabama viewers right there are going to be saying, man, he's got that senile old man on the show picking at A&M. That guy's crazy.
Well, I'll tell you, we had at Kirk Bowles and Joey.
He's a senile old man too.
I had them on for Texas week, and they both picked Texas, and lo and behold, they were correct. Did
you have Kirk and Cedric?
I had Kirk Bowles on the Tuesday, and I had Joey Hickey from Longhorns Wire on the Friday, and they both picked Texas. And then I got into the game, and I went as a fan. I sat in the top deck with all the Texas folks, and they treated everybody so nicely, but they were all about winning and it was an absolute blast.
Well, I think it's going to be a good football game. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Owen, thank you for your time. I hope you have a great weekend this weekend.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. That's Olin Buchanan joining us from TexAgs.com. So appreciative of his expertise. He is right there with every single thing that Texas A&M does. So you can't get a more inside look than Olin Buchanan, TexAgs.com. We're going to shift gears real quick. It's still going to be Alabama. It's still going to be Alabama football, but I had a conversation. With Todd McVey. Did I save it? This is going to be real nice for post-production. I thought I saved her. Yeah, let's make sure you save that. I'll fill for 2 seconds while it does save, and we will present the conversation that I had with Todd McVey. Todd McVey is the Thompson's is Thompson Tompkins High School head coach from head coach. Let's see, yeah, cancel that. Oh, yeah, that's what I want. I want this to be all together as we do everything on the fly. Yeah, that's what I wanted to see. Todd McVey. And let's save that so we can present it to all our. Oh no, I do have it saved. I just didn't know where to look for it. Great. So this will be a lot faster. So yeah, Todd McVey is the head coach for the Tompkins Falcons. He coached Jalen Milroe, and you could read the piece that I wrote on BamaCentral.com about the conversation already, and it was a great conversation. He gave me 25 minutes on Jalen Milroe. He talked about really his development through high school, comparisons that he sees from the Alabama offense and this Alabama team to what he experienced in high school. It was a lot of fun to hear from Todd McVey. This was our conversation.
Good afternoon, Coach McVey.
Yes, how are you?
Very good, very good. Thank you for your time. I'm doing well. My name is Joe Gaither. I work for BamaCentral.com.
Okay, nice to meet you.
Yes, sir. Nice to meet you as well. Thank you for responding to my direct message on Twitter. I really appreciate it.
You bet.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm calling really to talk about Jalen Milroe a little bit and really obviously his growth so far this season, and just kind of talk about him going back to Texas to play in Texas A&M this weekend.
Well, I mean, obviously excited for him coming, I guess, home in a way. Just 90 minutes down the road from here, so and played in front of his hometown crowds, and I've got one of their highly recruited tackles is playing for me right now, Ashton Funk. So for A&M, so it's kind of it's a cool thing when I get to see the kids come there, and because we got quite a lot of kids in college playing ball, so that'll be nice and close, and excited for him and the opportunity.
Are you going to be able to make some time to get over there, or will you watch it on television? I know Saturdays are busy for high school coaches getting ready for the next week.
Well, we're in our open week, and I have to go to my niece's wedding first on Friday night, and then I'm trying to shag tickets right now. So if not, I'll obviously be watching it on TV. TV sometimes the best view anyway, because I get to see all the replays.
Yeah, absolutely. What have you made of Jalen really going into this year? Obviously, he got thrown into a quarterback battle. He's kind of the favorite with the most experience, but you bring in a transfer. You bring in Tyler Buckner, and a lot of people are talking about Tyler Simpson. What was your kind of just overall assessment of how the quarterback battle went this summer and Jalen's just real growth?
Well, I think if anything else, it's like even here, we have guys that compete for jobs every day. And I think that makes you better as a competitor because it keeps you on edge. And I think when guys relax, that's when they fall. And so I think that was good for Jalen, because he had that same thing here a little bit with, having to fight for the job. And then just watching him grow, it's very similar. His sophomore year was when he started for us. And we just kind of let the offense come to him, just kind of like what I'm watching right now. Seems like each week he's a little more comfortable. He's doing a little bit more. He's just growing in it. And I think that takes time and patience. And obviously everybody, doesn't have patience sometimes. But, I remember we were just talking about it today that when he was a sophomore, we started out, hand it off and do some things. He would run. But by the end of the year, he was running the whole offense. And we're 3 rounds deep in the state playoffs in NRG Stadium and flinging it all over the place. And we lose to the eventual state finalists that year. And it was a great just watching him grow. And then his junior year and his senior year was the COVID year.
Right.
So it was a strange year that year because he wouldn't even hear at school. He would come after school for practice because he was doing remote learning. So that was strange. But just watching his growth and I watch him, the little things he does on the sidelines where he's always, checking his teammates. And, I love the shot that he took when he threw the touchdown. And he's on the ground and the guys are around him and he gets up and he's all fired up. And, and like anything else, standing in the pocket and taking one for your team as a quarterback, that's your job. And, that's why, God's blessed him with really good genes. So no doubt about being physically able to take that. And it's fun, actually, just watching him grow and get more comfortable. And it seems like anything else, the game slows down the more you play it. So I think that's what I'm watching right now for him.
Coach McVey, it seems like a lot of the Alabama fans are just kind of waiting for Jalen Milroe to screw up, and a lot of people are pointing up to this weekend as saying, "Oh, Texas A&M's defense is very good," and they are very, very good. It's going to be a challenge. But how would you respond to, because I've seen Jalen, it seems like progress each and every week and operate within the offense a lot, like you said. How do you think he's going to handle the challenge of going to Kyle Field? Obviously, being 90 minutes down the road, it's a huge, huge environment. It's going to be very, very loud. As the last time Alabama was there, they lost. Just can you talk about the challenge of playing on the road and how he's just matured and grown through working through the offense?
Well, I mean, last time I checked, when he came in last year, he came in at the Arkansas game. I think that might have been he's played in games on the road already, and I tell him all the time, we've said it here, you earn the right to play in those big games. I mean, that's what you want. That's a freaking awesome environment that any athlete, competitive athlete, wants to play in. You want to be in those things. And so, I mean, I know Jalen, as far as he's going to take every day, one day at a time. We use the term here, get 1% better all the time, every day. Be where your feet are. What's today? Today's Tuesday, so if I know him, he's working on today. He's not really worried about Saturday yet. And I think, like anything else, it's your energy will be good early, and then you kind of settle in, and then you realize it's that scene from Hoosiers where you measure everything, and the field's the same size as it is in Alabama, and you just got to go out there and play. They've had success on the road, and because I think they focus internally, not externally. They focus on what they can do, and do that to the best of their abilities, and that's why they've been very successful. Alabama, but Texas A&M obviously will be fired up to play them, always are, and so like I said, it's going to be a great matchup, and I got to tell everybody all the time, kids are kids, right? They're still kids. They're going to make mistakes. Watch how they respond from the mistakes, though. I think that's the key when you're watching athletes is how do they respond? How do they let that go? And, I'm a big Tom Brady fan. Well, Tom threw interceptions, but he was always on to the next play. And, I referenced, obviously here because I played quarterback, and Todd's my hero because he's the old man's quarterback like me. So I appreciate him. And see how they respond. And it's the E+R=O thing where the event plus the response equals the outcome. Well, just keep responding. And, I think that's what's going to be fun to watch them all participate, and because if I know Jalen, like I told him, I said, hey, make sure you tell your offensive line thank you because they're the ones blocking for you all the time. So take care of those guys.
Alabama's had a lot of maybe troubles along the offensive line this season, but Jalen's athleticism has been able to work around that, and all the offensive line's worked has been better through the last couple of weeks. Can you talk about, you mentioned response. Can you give me an example maybe of when Jalen maybe worked through some adversity during high school, or how you would have coached him, or how you've seen him respond either positively or negatively while he was in high school?
Well, and that's a great thing because we were talking about one of our first games. I think it was his senior year. It was against Magnolia. And we had a brand new offensive line. Like, everybody graduated. And we go into that game, and, and Jalen had been successful. But that game, he ran for over, I think, 160 yards because the O-line, they had brought some new stuff at us. They weren't ready for it. And that's why I'm laughing because I'm like, I saw the same thing happen, He dropped back. He's going to make you pay with his legs. Mm-hmm. And he's doing the same thing right now. And I think that's what I saw in high school. He just found another way. Like, like I said, you say dual threat. I always say a kid finds a way to win, whether it's throwing it or running it. And to me, that's quarterback play. And, he's a quarterback that's going to take what you give him. But I saw that because he won that game with his legs. I mean, he really did. And, because our offensive line was not intact at that point, but by year's end, his senior year, they ended up being the district champions for the first time since 2008. Another team was a district champion here. So the O-line grew with him, and that's what I'm watching those guys. If I'm an offensive lineman, I appreciate his legs because I don't have to hold on so long, and they're going to get better. Because like I said, it's a long season. It's where you're at, later down the line, not so much right now, because all those kids, they're all growing together and becoming a team. And it's just like, we're the same thing here each year. The same thing when Jalen was here. We were a different team each year. Sophomore year was a senior class that all he had to do was his job. His junior year and his senior year were a little bit different, and he had to take over the reins, especially his senior year, and he did a great job of that. So I think it's just watch it progress as we go. I think those guys will get better. You know, Jalen's starting to see more things as I was watching some of his throws, and just being very patient now. And so it's fun to watch and see the growth process as we go through the season.
Jalen took a lot of his receivers and teammates down to Florida this past summer and really worked on quarterback and running routes and whatnot. What kind of a leader would you say that Jalen Milroe is, and maybe vocal or non-vocal, or how would you say that he is has progressed as a leader from his time in high school and to now?
Well, I can speak to here. Here it was it was both. It was vocal. But more of his effort and practice, very in tune to practice, very much, I never had to worry about Jalen coming to practice every day. And that was a thing that I think was the best part, because, there's some guys you have to worry about who's going to practice hard in high school. Jalen was not, because he was going to come out there and he demanded perfection from himself. So obviously those around him had to perform as well. And like I said, there was never a game that I didn't think Jalen was prepared for mentally or physically. I told this story a while back to another reporter, but I said, if he didn't have a great day of practice or something, I'd watch him and his dad jump our fence right out here, because I'm outside of our field house, and they'd be out there he'd be throwing to his dad, to get that flat route right or get his steps right. And that said so much to me. Because I drive by and joke with his dad and I tell him to quit dropping that ball. He put it right on you. You got to catch that thing. So I'd mess with his dad a little bit. But, it was like his leadership was like that in his play, because he was locked in. He's a high level competitor, and he plays plays the game the right way. I feel like he plays to compete, do his job to the best of his ability. And like I told him, I said, it's the Jordan effect. You want to make those people around you better. And Jordan started winning when he started passing the ball and not just shooting it all the time. I think I'm sitting there watching it develop there, what I see. I mean, Coach Saban's forgotten more football than I know, so I'm just saying what I see as a casual guy watching the game. But, I'm starting to see it come into play with the receivers and all of that. What he did this summer is going to come into play as they keep going here. It's getting better. That's what I love watching. And, just having that signal caller get used to everybody and they get used to him. I mean, I'm excited to watch it go this season, so it'll be fun.
I can't wait for this weekend. Also, Alabama at 2:30 against Texas A&M. So Jalen Milroe, a lot of detractors. Oh, he can't read a defense. Oh, he can't work through a progression. I've seen week after week after week him developing in that area. Just how hard does he work at those games? And you as a former quarterback, how difficult is it to master reading progressions and reading defenses?
Well, it's not easy when you have gargantuan guys coming down your throat. But Jalen, like I said, as we grew here, the offense grew more around him each year. We could do more. Like I said, his sophomore year, we did some bit, because that was his sophomore year was only our second year here. And, the thing is his freshman year, his team had the only winning record. They were 8-2, and our varsity was 0-9. And then the next year when he was a starting quarterback, we went 10-3, and it was the biggest turnaround in the state of Texas that year.
Wow.
And so he progressed and, film study. I mean, he does all those things, even during the COVID year, where he couldn't actually be here, we brought him up at like 7:30 and 7 in the morning. He would do his film study here with our coach, but then he had to leave because of COVID rules and stuff like that. Because he wanted to know, and he was part of the game plan as well. We also hey, what do you like? What do you like here? What routes do you like? We wanted him to feel good about what he was doing, because as a quarterback, I mean, I've watched all of them. I mean, how many times have I seen Brady telling somebody, hey, I like this, this, and this, and because that's what you feel comfortable with as a quarterback. And I've watched him develop, and, I think they have a new OC. So there's a lot of developing going on there with the OC, the new starter, all line. A lot of impatience is not a good thing right now. Patience is the key to anything developing. It just takes time, and everybody wants everything right now. And, Bryce Young he's gone. These are the guys now, and you have to let them develop and be who they're going to be. Like every place. I mean, we lost Jalen with the guy behind him, came in, and he went 11-2 too because he had a good example in front of him. I mean, that's what good programs do. They develop them because of the guys in front. And Bryce, and I've talked to Jalen and said Bryce taught him a lot, but it takes time, and that game experience is invaluable. I mean, everybody talks about last year's A&M game where he fumbled twice. Well, he hasn't been in the game in a while. It's, since his senior year. You get used to that. Now because I was joking with him. I said, hey, those dudes are pretty strong. He goes, coach, they are strong. And Jalen's strong. I said, well, it's not like, high school strong. It's college strong. So anyway, I think those things develop, and his reading of things comes with time and experience and becoming one with the OC in that room. And that just, like I said, just takes time.
Yeah, you hit kind of on my next question with Tommy Rees, first year offensive coordinator. He hadn't learned or hadn't been around Jalen Milroe even when he's a redshirt and redshirt freshman. How much, Tommy Rees walks in. You coach offense as well. How much, he walks in. He wants to run a system. How much of a time does it take, or how much of a process is it to learn your own personnel and learn what your guys do, your new guys do, and learn how to put them into good positions?
I think anybody I don't have a timeline for
Sure,
that. I think
sure.
everybody's different. I think it's just, obviously they're there to do a job, and they're going to spend more time with him and get to know each other. And I think like anything else, it's building the relationship between the two people. That's what we do. We try to build the relationship with the kids, and I'm sure that's the same thing the coach does. That you want to build a relationship with the guy, get to know him, because you build that trust. And I think I see it on the field. I'm watching it, and trusting him with more stuff. It's I think it's like Coach Saban said. I think the penalties have not had 5 touchdowns been called back,
Yes.
if I remember right.
Yes.
Well, you all of a sudden you bring those 5 touchdowns back, and it's not so bad, is it? So it's and that's part of the game. I always think when bad things happen early, it pays off later. It's like if you have we had a guy, he rolled his ankle, and another guy had to start this last 2 weeks. Well, we just built depth because that other guy's coming back. That's not a bad thing. We've learned that we gave up 8 explosive plays over 3 weeks. Well, we cut those down, and we were number 5 in turnover ratio, where we're up to 1 or 2. Well, we quit doing the explosive plays, and now we're back up to 1 or 2 and protecting the football. Well, we won last week. It's amazing, isn't it? It's such a simple game yet hard, as we say. And I think that's just, developing the relationship, and those guys are doing that. You can see it on the field, and there's no better place to build relationship in the heat of battle, man. That's some good stuff right there when you're watching all the heat and the adversity. And as we always say, we're at the University of Adversity here at school, right? When we go through all the hard stuff, it makes us better. And nobody's learned anything when it's easy. So they're going through it all now. It's all going to pay off later. So like I said, I'm excited about that. And, they just stay the course, and they keep getting 1% better and have 1 more point than the other team. I think it's got a chance to be a good season.
Absolutely. I'll have maybe 1 or 2 more for you, Coach, and I really appreciate your time. Jalen's been pretty vocal and pretty open about his faith, both before he got the starting role and after post games. He's been very very quick to credit his faith and credit Christ. Was that an aspect of his life in high school? And really, how do you think that has helped him stay the course and as you said, get through some of the adversity?
Well, I think that was part of him here, and I think that it's part of my life, and I think that it's like anything else, right? He has something to fall back on. It's not like if something bad happens, and I think you hear that from him because he's football is a game. And I think Jalen's got his life right in the right direction of what he wants to be. He knows, I think like anything else, it's Jalen Milroe is Jalen Milroe, but he plays quarterback. It's not, I'm a quarterback and that's all I do. And I think that's instilled from his family. They're great people. It's his faith is strong, and I think and all these young people today, what a great example for him to be for them. And I think it's outstanding myself, and I enjoy hearing him share it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that has been a real strong point. I think it was after the A&M game that he got a lot of criticism last year, and it was a photo that emerged of him reading the Bible in the locker room, and I just thought, what a good example for a lot of people. When you think of Jalen off the field in high school, outside of just playing quarterback, what comes to mind?
Jalen can light up a room when he walks in. I mean, he's just I can't even explain it. There's a word I have for charisma, all right? But it's real. It's like who Jalen is, and I think my favorite story is when he was. I think my son was 8 when I took this job, and Jalen, we were out in the field throwing, just that was summer, and Ty's my son, so he's running this little out and up. I said, "Hey, come here, T." I said, "Jay, throw this route." It was a post corner. That's what it was. I said, "But run it against this receiver." We stuck out there, our receiver, as a DB. Well, T ran it, and Jay pumped the post, and Ty come out of it, and Jalen throws it. He catches it. Jalen runs down there like it's a dang Super Bowl, picks Ty up in the air, and he's smiling. Woo! And, I mean, I still have chills because I went, this kid's going to be big time, and look at this, right? Like, that was the stuff that I loved about him because it was always just – the humility, I guess, right? You enjoy being around him, super competitive in the game. But man, if like we had a young lady, special needs here that was having a birthday party, and the mom asked me, "Hey, you think some of your guys could come?" And about 8 of my football players went over there in their jerseys, Jalen being one of them. And that girl ended up being our biggest fan. The kid, and I will tell you this: the kids learned more than she did. Mm-hmm. They learned what it was to serve someone besides themselves, and I thought it was just awesome. And then that girl comes and walks out with us at our game, and she's behind me on the bench crying. And I look at the lady, and I go, "What's wrong with her?" And she goes, "She doesn't want to leave. It's her team, and she doesn't want to leave, Coach." And I'm like, "Well, she's got to go in the stands right now." But I mean, they changed her life, right? And I think that's the thing, and just watching him interact with people and never big time in people. I love that. Walking down the hallway like just one of the other guys, and still like that when he comes back here. And I let him talk to the junior high kids, and he was talking to our leadership council last time he was home, and just sharing the same message of being more than just a football player. And I think that's what helps him get through those adversities because he doesn't label himself just a football player. It's who he is as well as a person. Those are the things I think stand out for him.
Last one for you, Coach, and I really appreciate your time for Jalen Milroe. As you've watched him this year, he's taken steps in development, but obviously more to grow and more to go. What would be your encouragement, or what would be your message, or your coaching points for areas that he can improve on? As we're right at 6 weeks in the season, we got another 6 weeks to go. What might be your message to Jalen Milroe in ways that he can improve, or ways that he just needs to stay the course? Either way.
Listen to Coach Saban. Do what his OC says. I think those guys are doing a really good job with him, and I think it's like anything else. And I've said it. It sounds really simple, but stay the course. Be where his feet are, and just continue to get 1% better at what he's doing. 1% doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a lot. And we've preached that here since we've gotten here, and Jay understands that what I say when I because I text him, "Hey, just be where your feet are today, man. Get better." And because, we talk to our kids a lot about don't live in the past, can't change it, don't look at the future, surrender that because we don't even know what's going to happen yet. And be right where you are. Be present, play present, be coach present. And he's doing all those things. That's what I'm saying is patience here is I'm watching them and they're working and doing things, and it's just fun to watch. I see little nuances of him doing some things and making the checks and like I said, it's if you're not getting, I think they're just getting better every game, and just watching them, and just a little bit I get a chance to watch. And but like I said, it's not Jalen Milroe versus A&M. It's Alabama versus A&M. So 3 phases got to show up: offense, defense, and special teams, and that's where the team will win the game. So he's just got to do his part to the best of his ability.
I said last question, but I have one more pop in my head if you don't mind.
Okay, no, it's fine.
Do you have any examples or any stories where Jalen went into kind of a hostile environment, either on the road during your time in high school, and how he responded to that?
I mean, we played
Texas high school is
we played
huge.
our rival. Yeah, in high school we played Katy, which is our rival here. They are 9-time state champions here in this district. Like I said, his junior year we lost to them 30-35, and he had thrown for almost 300 yards on them. It was a great game, but we lost. And the next year, his senior year, he ends up throwing for 3 touchdowns against them. And the best one was on 4th and 17 because we were too close to punt, but yet too far for a field goal. And we called a timeout. And I can still see our center, who was like 225 pounds. The nose is just driving him back. He just hangs on. And he goes right by Jay, and Jay throws this post corner for a touchdown. And it was just, he just stood in there and threw it. And we won our first district championship in school history in a hostile environment right here against the crosstown rival. And I think that was the night he was spot on that night. It was a great night and first time district champ. So I think that, and, we played in the game, those two, we played in NRG, and we lost to Westbrook like 42-49. It was just a battle back and forth, and he's slinging it everywhere, and we're running, because that was the last game of the year. Like I said, he had grown in his sophomore year or so, but the one who was a senior, those 3 touchdowns he threw.
On television, I know Saturdays are busy for high school coaches.
Better every game, and just watching them, and just a little bit I get a chance to watch. And his junior year, we lost to them 30-35, and he had thrown for almost 300 yards on them. It was a great game, but we lost. And the next year, his senior year, he ends up throwing for 3 touchdowns against them. And the best one was on 4th and 17 because we were too close to punt, but yet too far for a field goal. And we called a timeout. And I can still see our center, who was like 225 pounds. The nose is just driving him back. He just hangs on. And he goes right by Jay, and Jay throws this post corner for a touchdown. And it was just, he just stood in there and threw it. And we won our first district championship in school history in a hostile environment right here against the crosstown rival. And I think that was the night he was spot on that night. It was a great night and first time district champ. So I think that, and, we played in the game, those two, we played in NRG, and we lost to Westbrook like 42-49. It was just a battle back and forth, and he's slinging it everywhere, and we're running, because that was the last game of the year. Like I said, he had grown in his sophomore year or so, but the one who was a senior, those 3 touchdowns he threw were on a dime. It was fun, and he was lit up, and it was, like I said, first time in school history. He was part of that, and he led the way.
Well, Coach, I really appreciate your time. I've really enjoyed watching Jalen progress, and every time he steps up to the podium, he always treats us with great respect, and he's just such a likable guy. So I'm hopeful. Got to try to stay as neutral as I can, but you pull for the good guys, and he absolutely exudes
He's
that.
a good guy. He's a good guy. He is. Yeah, that's who you see there. That's who Jay is. So.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Maybe we can catch up again soon. And thank you so much for the insight and the stories with Jalen Milroe.
You appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right.
That was head coach Todd McVey of the Tompkins Falcons out there in Katy, Texas. That was our man from he coached Jalen Milroe for the last 3 years and gave you some of the insights on Alabama's starting quarterback heading out to College Station on Saturday. Look, that's going to do it for our show today. We had a lot of fun with Olin Buchanan, had a lot of fun on our conversation with head coach Todd McVey of the Tompkins Falcons out there in Katy, Texas. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure you follow Olin Buchanan at Olin Buchanan. You can follow me at Joe Gaither 6 on any of the social media machines. We appreciate everybody sending us a like, a follow, a share, a subscribe, a rate, review. We're on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. You're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on Amazon. We're going to have a lot of fun tomorrow on a Football Friday. We're going to be previewing the game with a lot of our friends. I'm going to bring a lot of friends in actually tomorrow. Michael Bronner. We'll probably have Katie Wyndham. We'll probably have Austin Hannon and Blake Byler. We'll have a huge cast of characters because tomorrow's my birthday and I just want to have fun. So we're going to have a Football Friday talking about the SEC games, talking about Alabama A&M. It's going to be a big weekend. Kentucky and Georgia. Anybody giving the Wildcats a chance to take SEC first place? Is Missouri for real? Missouri and LSU. I know LSU lost last weekend, but big chance for the Missouri Tigers. It's going to be a lot of fun. So join me tomorrow on the Joe Gaither Show right here on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com. I love each and every one of you. Tell somebody about the show. Subscribe, rate, and review. review, and come join us tomorrow right here on the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com.